Welcome back. Earlier this week, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau making a truly stunning statement regarding the U.S. tariffs, that Donald Trump was trying to collapse our economy to make it easier for the U.S. to annex Canada. But it's actually not the first time the U.S. has tried to use tariffs to try and take our country. To tell us the tale, I'm joined by historian and the host of the Canadian History Ehx podcast, Craig Baird. Craig, I understand that in 1890, the U.S. Tariff Act brought an import tariff of up to 50%, and the hope was that it would force the annexation of Canada?
Yeah, that's essentially what they were trying to do. Now, they said they were doing it to kind of have protection for the American markets, but part of it was to annex Canada and turn us into the 45th state. And that's because Canada at the time had a lot of timber and fisheries, so they wanted to be able to take advantage of that. Obviously, it's a bit different now with oil and other minerals, but the end result was the same, of annexing Canada and trying to get us to join the United States by making us more dependent on their economy and their trade.
So what was the response from Canada at the time?
Very much to how it is now. Nationalistic. We became much more identifying as Canadians, but also identifying as part of the British Empire. We really started to shift our focus towards Britain. We traded much more with Britain. Our agricultural exports, livestock, produce, pretty much doubled to quadrupled in the amount of exports that were going to the Great Britain from about 1890 to 1892. So it really shifted us away from the United States and just had us focus more on trading within the British Empire. So for the Americans, it backfired completely, because in 1892, they also lost the presidency, the House, and the Senate, which eventually led to the removal of the tariffs and things getting back to somewhat normal.
All right, so what do you think the takeaway should be for the federal government as they face this threat again today, more than a century later?
Well, anytime the tariffs have been raised against Canada, it's always pretty much ended badly for whatever ruling party was in place in the United States. But it also just makes Canada focus on other trading partners, and we kind of developed the steely resolve of not trading with the United States. At no point has raising tariffs on Canada ever worked out for the United States, and I don't imagine it's going to be the case with this either, even though that the trading markets and the world trading system has become much more advanced than it was back in 1890. We'll probably just start to shift our focus to other places and away from the United States, just like we did 135 years ago.
Last question for you. I understand that in 1930, the U.S. brought in the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, if I'm saying it correctly. Can you tell us about that one? Because I understand it had an impact on Canada and didn't work out so well for the U.S. either.
Yeah, so what happened there was they actually increased tariffs by up to about 60%, so even higher than what happened in 1890 and more than double what's happening now. And again, it didn't really work out for the United States, because Canada and many other countries retaliated with their own tariffs, and the amount of exports going into the United States and imports fell dramatically. And again, it also caused a big swing from the Republicans controlling much of the presidency, the Senate, and the House, switching over to the Democrats, who then lower tariffs. But it also made things very difficult with the Great Depression. Now, in that case, it wasn't so much about annexing Canada. It was about trying to find ways to overcome the Great Depression, and it failed horribly once again.
Wow, history kind of repeating itself all over again. That's the host of the Canadian History Ehx podcast, Craig Baird. Craig, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.